Hey, Mr. Townhead, Ewan.
Yo, Mr. Wilkinson.
Well, here we are. Well, you're a long-term friend and peer and fellow traveler. We got in touch 15 plus years ago, I think, because we were both kind of young, integral enthusiasts trying to start something in Europe and I'm sure we would giggle at some of our early emails now.
I'm sure we would.
But it's great to have you here. And I invited you on because you've written a new book, and that's exciting. Just as your friend, that you've got your work out there in your book. And also for our group of peers, it feels like we're slowly kind of coming more into the world. So good, you're taking a lead there. And yeah, how does it feel being here and having written your book?
Well, dude, it's just good to be with you. Feels fun to do this with you. The book feels amazing. Here it is, I'll show it to you. Like every time I put my hands on it, it just feels amazing. Like it's a whole thing writing and then like promoting it yourself. There's no New York publishing house like running all the marketing for this thing. So
Yeah.
like I'm in a different mode now of trying to get it into people's hands and find like essentially like find the people who this is written for. Like it's definitely not for everybody. And then there's some people I think it's like really in a sweet spot for. And so I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious about trying to find them. But it feels amazing. It was like I think you know some of the story, but it was a super long journey to write it. I first started it 7 years ago, and then COVID happened and business got super busy and my son was born and it kind of sat on the shelf for a while. So, I mean, I put just crazy amounts of hours into writing this thing, but I'm super happy with it. And the feedback so far has been great. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it feels good, man. And it's been out, this is a good note to bring in for this community, like super vulnerable process also. I can name that. Um,
Mm.
the like early on, even the notion that I was capable of writing a book of quality at all was a big move. And then, yeah, putting it out in the world definitely had some vulnerability hangover from it first week or
Yeah.
two. Just this feeling of like, there's no hiding. I realized this is something I've been reflecting on recently. I think I developed a strategy at school where I didn't try that hard because I didn't have to. Like I could totally just fly by without putting a whole lot of effort in.
Coast.
I think this is really common too. So I did that, and then what I realized also is it was a great cover for vulnerability. Like, because if I don't put a lot of effort in and I nail it and I get great marks, like how fucking clever am I? I just nailed it without even trying. And if it doesn't go well, it's like, ah, whatever. I didn't care about it anyway. I didn't really put my best into it.
Yeah.
Whereas this thing, like, I put everything in, like nothing was left on the field. It's as good as I can make it. I just couldn't take it any further. So, there's nowhere to hide. I think that
Yeah.
was the feeling in the middle of the vulnerability. But yeah, good. I think that's a good sign. Yeah.
Well, well, being here with you now, the thing I get drawn to like both aspects. Like you're already sharing a bit about the process of creating the book, and then I'm also wanting to dive into the book because the, I mean, I felt a kind of, I think this is a real feeling of like proud of you for the writing style
Mm.
and the just the craft that was in there, and that's a big part of the artist and merchant, yeah, and the seeker. Um, but also the the archetypes you use, and I love the archetypal realm. I use that a lot as well in my practice. So I've already I noticed with certain clients where our topics are related around that they already really gravitate towards these this like the clarification of these archetypes. And I think my instinct with you now is to actually start with the message and then imagine some of the process you went through unearthing and crafting these distinctions will come through. And yeah, and so from that, I think the main thing I got from the book was if you're gonna step into the world of work or enterprise or any kind of creation in the world, you're inevitably going to bump into these deep human patterns. There's going to be some kind of artistic part of your endeavor. There's going to be a merchant and there's going to be a seeker, especially for people in this kind of transformational world as well. And actually, what's common with these deep patterns is you usually gravitate towards one or two, and one goes into the shadows, uh, either as like an inferior other or just a thing I'm not good at. And one message I was taking from yours is like, let's make these conscious, let's bring these into the light. Let's see like where their like light shadow is as well as their dark shadows. And then yeah, go on a journey into yourself to see like where you want to grow or where what speaks to you, where are your strengths, what are you pushing away, where's the light and the shadow. Like so I found that really inspiring and I enjoyed grappling with that. And yeah, is there anything you'd like to add just from my initial kind of sense of the book's message, your message?
Yeah, it's good. I think what's in there is, again, it starts with me and I'm trying to work things out for myself, but I think this is a message that applies to so many of us. Like, I felt like the way that we define work or what we do as entrepreneurs or freelancers or people doing our work in the world is like, it always felt so narrow. Like the conventions I felt like I was taught didn't allow in like some of the breadth and range I felt like I naturally had.
Mm.
And instinctively, I always felt that like a bigger game is possible, like one where we can, like all of us can show up. I feel like that's what circling is doing in a relational context. It's like, no, you're all, like all of you is welcome. Like the whole thing is actually what makes the juice if you really kind of get who you are and people see you. So I think the map kind of resolves some of that tension for me personally, and then I think for other people. And then, yeah, I think it's a practical message, like you're saying too, which is you're going to bump up against these things sooner or later, all of them, but they're all really different. And
Yeah.
for me, and probably for a lot of people watching this, like we tend to be less embodied in the merchant. Not everybody, people shift in different communities, but like our kinds of communities are often really seeker leaning.
Yeah.
Like it's people on the search, like who am I? What's the nature of this game? Like what do I feel called to? What is truth? Where do I
Yeah.
come from? Why am I here? All of that sort of stuff. Um, and I think the artist is a generally a good cousin or sibling for that work, and those can coexist quite easily.
Although there can be a lot of scarring around the artist or and and it in
Right.
some ways can be yeah, I mean, how many people listening to this had, art class where they were told they couldn't draw or or their writing was never appreciated for its authenticity, or
Yep,
and so you can that's an easy one to believe is within you, that's someone else's domain.
totally. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's super common and shows something about our cultural archetype too as a whole, like what it values and what it doesn't really
Mm.
understand very well. And I think our schooling process in general is pretty damaging of the artist archetype inside of us. It doesn't really understand it or give it room to play in general.
Mm.
Um, I had re my mum's really artistic, and so that was encouraged a lot in me at home, and that was my early life. So I feel really grateful for that. But yeah, it's really common in people I know and coaching clients and other things. It's like people just don't really believe they have it in them, and they kind of there's a real deficiency kind of feeling around it. Um,
Yeah, just speaking about this, I get some sense of an orientation because um, people coming in to like listening to this now, who this book really, for me, it centers around the world of work. And I would say in the business world, especially, it's not often you hear archetypes spoken of. And actually, I like this because in some ways you could speak of these same things without even mentioning archetypes.
yeah,
Because it's like, it's an artist, a merchant, and a seeker. They're pretty self-explanatory.
yeah,
But
you can
actually,
talk
I think,
about it without archetypes. You can say like the creative part of you, the spiritual
yeah,
part of you, and the business part, or your
yeah,
business, spirituality, and creativity. Yeah, you can do
yeah.
it that way.
And what I like about this framing, though, is it's grounding it in something deeper. Because like an archetype is what like a foundational pattern in our being that, and you can always tell it's archetypal because it shows up everywhere, and we kind of come into it. And actually, anyone knows that, like, if you try and do art or you try and seek a deeper truth and you lead with your mind and you lead from what you know, it's usually poor art or you don't go very deep. Whereas like the true like seeking and the true artist and actually the true merchant, interesting that I mentioned that last in this case, is actually letting go and like allowing the art to come through, or and the seeker is trying to let go of the seeking to find, yeah, to find the truth. And so what I like about your framing is it's both very practical, like you say, but this grounding it in these deeper currents. And in another way, that's like there's no escape from this. It's not like, okay, let's develop the merchant in us. It's like the merchant is already there. You're already involved in a global network of merchandise, and you're already playing in it actually. And your way of maybe to to distance, but that's still a way of playing. And so it feels like a good invitation in your book to grapple with these archetypes and to understand them more clearly. So then you can
Right.
play more consciously.
Exactly. And be able to play a bigger game too, with like not only more dimensions of your own abilities and capacities, but a bigger game, like you're more well-rounded in the arena.
Mm.
Like actually, in some of the early drafts, and I took all of this out, but I illustrated some of the concepts with MMA, which you and I are both fans of, so mixed martial arts. I decided it wasn't the right example for the book, but it is a great example if you're into that sort of stuff. Because what's happened now, the last 10 years or so, is like, unless you're well rounded in all three main disciplines of grappling, striking, and wrestling, like, you don't have a chance at the top level. Like, no way.
Yeah.
Like, even the people that specialize and are specialists in certain disciplines are still super good at the other stuff. And I kind of feel like it's really moving that way in the marketplace in general. It's like you got to fill out in these different dimensions. Like if it's only the narrow business game with no depth and no creativity, I don't think anyone's really interested in anymore.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
We
so I
certainly get enough of that on our Facebook feeds or
well, exactly, and we're not interested in that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, well actually you use the mixed martial arts example and for those that don't follow that it's a sport basically where they're using you can use any modality of martial arts to fight. I would actually say that example works also just as well if you use it as the fighters as uh like the most popular fighters are actually artists in the sense that they've learnt to do their craft. Like they're good at martial arts and they know how to compete, but they're also great marketers.
Mm,
But also, and interestingly, one of the most popular ones, or the most popular one by a long, long way, Conor McGregor. I mean, the seeking has become a big part of his whole thing. Like he's become a Christian now,
mm,
and actually some of the other big fighters who are well known also ground their artistry and their work in God or in
mm,
their
mm,
religion.
mm-hmm.
So it's actually playing a huge role. Like, where do they get their inspiration from if they're doing such a dangerous sport? Like being grounded in something higher and doing it for something, yeah,
Yes.
of a deeper level is going to have a profound effect on how you perform and how you also promote yourself as a fighter.
Right. Good point. Yeah. I'd
And
say also that, like another facet of the seeker as it shows up in a more applied sense is essentially authenticity. It's like it's real and true to who you are. And I
yeah,
think the people that got really big in MMA or in other sports, yeah, they're really good at marketing and kind of charismatic and gregarious and, outspoken. But they are being themselves in general. Like
yeah,
it's not a caricature. It is a slightly different character. It's like their public character, but it's an expression of them. And then there are other
yeah.
people that kind of like try to do a thing,
Yeah.
and it's not really, and yeah,
It doesn't work at
no,
all.
doesn't right,
So there are plenty of people, yeah, copying this most popular fighter because he gets so much attention, and
right,
but actually, you soon find out that it wasn't just coming from I want to sell these tickets. I want people to watch me. Yeah, it has to be part of who you are, like you say.
yeah,
And so then bringing it like home, then I mean, for me, I felt quite inspired by how you um, filled out what a merchant is, because I would say the other two were, like you said, were a little bit more familiar for me. But then I actually also have a lot of respect for the merchant. I've got a lot of respect for actually the most famous CEOs, and like, of course, you can critique them for, their artistry and their seeking ability, how deep are they? But for anyone to run an organization and to create good products or services and then deliver them consistently, deal with the challenges you get, just inevitably doing that. I've just got deep respect for that. And I love actually learning about it. And I would actually say on my own path, the seeking was obviously a big element for me and actually artistry, but it's definitely the seeking and I feel like I've been on such a deep commitment to that, almost full-time commitment to that. And it was like the merchant came out of that. Like that was my way of letting the world know what I do is actually speaking from what I've discovered or what what draws me. But actually what I'm finding now is it's like I actually want to turn towards the merchant more because it's like, how am I as an organizational leader? Because I'm not the same as what I am in a workshop when I'm leading my practice. I feel like I've got mastery there, and even I'm still kind of on a hero's journey, going on the trials up and down, and still so much to learn and develop. There's definitely a sense of mastery there that is different in my organization on that level. So that's where a lot of my energy and attention goes. Like I want to be also, yeah, I want to round myself out there. So I liked looking at that element and reflecting on it through your work.
Yeah, let's go into this a little bit because I'm really curious on your reflections on this too. So I think one of the key things that I had to work out for myself over the years with this archetype is so it's not really native to me. I didn't grow up around business stuff particularly. In fact, it was more around like left-wing liberal politics kind of place that I
Yeah.
grew up, which is really suspicious of business, like deeply so. And um, so this is why I find archetypes so powerful too, because you can look at the archetype as a pattern and you can go, well, what's the heart of this thing? What's the ethic that's actually driving the
Mm.
archetype in the first place? Which is always coming from, a higher intention. So the merchant is driven by, in my mapping of it, essentially goodness. And how do we create more goodness in the world? In modern language, we call that value. That's what business people and
Mm.
merchants speak about. We're providing value to people, and it's about value exchange. And why it's magical is if you get the exchange right, such that, we're both consenting and we both walk away feeling good about it, then what we've done is we've created goodness from the exchange that wasn't there beforehand. Like we've made more
Mm.
of it. And
Yeah.
that's what makes economies grow. That's how the whole kind of mechanism of economics works. And so that's an amazing ethic if it's held in its light form, which is so there's a kind of test. It's like, is the deal and exchange good for me? Is it also good for you as the buyer, me as the seller, you as the buyer, and is it good for our wider community? If it's good for all of those things, like it's just good. It just makes more goodness and it brings
Yeah.
like more richness into the world, and that's good for all of us. And that's the ethic at the bottom of the best of Western society. We could talk about the shit side of it, but like the good side of it
Yeah.
is this amazing commitment to, by historical standards, really free markets where we have a lot of choice and optionality and sovereignty to be able to go and do what we want and sell things and buy things, and
Yeah.
that's amazing. But the shadow of it is really visible in our world, which is the merchant who's, rather than being driven by service primarily, they're essentially driven by greed, and they're more interested in maximizing their own return than kind of benefiting everybody. Like even so, the famous economist Milton Friedman famously said something like, "The only responsibility of a company is to maximize profit for its shareholders," and that's the ethic that's still held in a lot of our business
Mm.
world. It's like as long as the business is profitable and our shareholders are getting paid, that's the only thing we're responsible for. The thing is, you can fuck over your customers to do that. You can destroy the environment to do
Yeah.
that. All these things that we know and see examples of, and like that's not okay. That's not cool. But then the move that many of us make, especially in spiritual communities, is we see the shadow. We go like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to perpetuate that. But then you kind of think the merchant itself is a dark archetype that you don't want anything to do with. But if you do that, you just put it in your own shadow, like your own ability to like bring goodness into the world and enrich other people's lives is severely handicapped because you're not willing to
Yeah.
look at that part of yourself. And so often, like in circling, actually, if you look deep into that archetype, maybe you've got a lot of resistance or even judgment about it. But if you look under it, it's often vulnerability, I think. It's like, actually, we're kind of scared that maybe the marketplace doesn't give a fuck about us, or
Or the other side would be the shadow of I actually enjoy profiting and
right, God forbid. Yeah,
I enjoy putting my voice out there and trying to be persuasive.
right,
There's
right,
part somewhere in me that wants to do that,
right,
and so
right.
that's also vulnerable to own that side of it. Yeah,
Yeah, right,
it really speaks to me because I, especially at university, coming through, I imagine there are people that can resonate with this. Whereas I also came from a liberal background, so suspicion around money accumulating with the rich 1% and uh, you know, suspicious of people in power and um, yeah, wanting things to be more distributed and bottom up. And especially at university, learning post-structural philosophy and deconstructing everything. And like, I got super passionate about, corporations being kind of psychopathic in nature and like we need to bring wealth to the people because if you trust people, they are intelligent and they will. This whole idea that we have to accumulate it to the elite is kind of a false promise and it leads to corruption and it's what's causing the environmental damage and all the segregations and conflicts in society. And I went so deep onto that. And in the end, I actually feel like that was like quite a painful dead end. And part of it was actually like the world of the merchant or business. It's inevitably competitive because there's scarce resources. And actually, I think fundamentally that is also about there's scarce resources. There's a lot of need we have in humanity. So the competition is trying to find the things that work because it's hard to find things that work well, and then giving the space and the energy to the things that work well. So when it goes well, it's actually that's the like you say, the goodness of the merchant. It's helping us create more of what really works for us and what supports us, and giving that like a network the the other thing I saw was also I just found that world hard, like because you to do well in it's difficult. I mean, it's easy to critique someone like Elon Musk or like Bill Gates and I don't think they're necessarily perfect people, but I couldn't choose to be that.
right,
I can't. It's beyond me. That capacity is rare, and in some ways, like a sports star. It's kind of incredible that someone has that kind of capacity. And then obviously we've got to look at the whole picture. But so coming to terms with actually my own capacity and limitations was part of why I was deconstructing everything.
right, right,
Because it felt like I had some power then, because I could critique this big system and like show where it was wrong and corrupt. But then my own, yeah, challenge and bringing my stuff in a better way, creating something that's actually better than what's out there. I tried, but it was so hard. It's so hard to do it better. Like, and so then what happened to me was more of a humility and then like, oh, there's more to this than just corruption and exploitation. Actually, there's a lot of incredible like human beings. Just get 10 human beings into a forest and get them to survive together for like a week, and they it's so hard to coordinate. It's so difficult. People are it's so hard to work together. So to get a global network of people working together is actually some kind of incredible life achievement that life's managed to do through us somehow.
right. Totally. Yeah,
And to
I
look at that
resonate.
excellence is, yeah,
Yeah, I resonate with that. I went through a kind of similar thing where, yeah, it's kind of easier to just judge and dismiss these, shallow corporate fuckers that are, destroying the goodness of our world or something. I think in my early 20s, that was a really easy position to take and made myself feel like way more special. And I agree with you. I think, again, it's like the vulnerability that's underneath it is, well, actually, yeah, that's a really hard game to play. And the people that succeed in business generally have worked their asses off for a long time because it's hard. It's a competitive marketplace and it asks a lot of you. And yeah, anyone who's ever tried to start a business or just, just a solo business, like, can I make a living from my own freelance stuff that I really like doing? You can, but it's hard. You can't like just
Yeah.
rock up and expect to start making a living in the first couple of months or something. It just doesn't work that way. I mean,
Yeah.
how long did you and John put time and effort and energy into your company before it started to become, I mean, it took a long time, man. And you'd already had another company before that and got enormous amounts of experience. So yeah, I think it's a hard journey. And I think like for people then like me and you or our communities, also I think we generally have a standard which says like I want to be myself when I do it as well. Like I don't want it to be this facade thing where I show up and do this job like that I don't actually care about and I'm, hiding behind. No, I want this to be about me too and be, authentic in the things I care about. And so that adds a whole different dimension to the whole thing. Now it's not just a game of business and can you make the numbers work and understand your
The game of
customers.
meaning.
Right, but you've got to
Yeah.
understand the meaning in it and you've got to go through your own evolutionary process because it's going to face you with the stuff that you find hard. Like if you've got resistance to being visible and putting your, the stuff that you care about out in the world, if that's scary for you, you're going to have to face that fear because that's just part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you might have just frozen a second, but the the thing that I found that I got from your book and feels like it resonates for me is so it's good to look at this like um how I can avoid the merchant and either become superior or feel inferior and kind of avoid. But then it seems like what the move I'm getting from you and what inspires me is like, okay, so it seems like the reality, something like there is a goodness there, but it's not an easy path and it's yeah, there's traps and there's potentials and like there's a hero's journey, heroine's journey to be had. But then once that's like you take, the call from the messenger of like, okay, I'm going to go on that journey, then it turns into something new. It's like, okay, so I like to do transformational connection. Now I've got to tell the world, like, how do I tell the world? Because it's easy to say like, okay, I've got to do some copy and put it on Facebook. But actually what you're doing is you're communicating to the world. You're not just doing this procedure. Do I have to make a funnel or all these technical things? It's like maybe you'll do those things, but first it's like this is your opportunity to share your heart or share what it is you're passionate about with those that might want to listen. And actually that that journey feels really meaningful to me, like for the seeker as well as the merchant. And inevitably, like if I did anything, if I want to be good at handstands, I can't do a handstand at the moment. I'm not going to just be able to do it. I'm going to have to go through a journey to be able to do it. And that seems the same as like getting your message out. So if in the beginning it's like not so good, it's like, yeah, but you've taken a step. And then you can do a little bit more. It's like, oh no, this felt a little inauthentic, and this one's felt authentic, but no one tapped on it. And like you're constantly kind of learning from the world, but also trying to find your resource. Well, that's a spiritual practice.
right.
And it's a human practice as well, because it's a good place to learn humility. It's a good place to also try and find your authentic voice and to really find out what it is you do. Because you really have to find out what you have to do when you speak about it.
Right, right. Yeah, before I even like bring in the archetypes, which I think they're deep archetypes in like entrepreneurial work. That's the premise of the book. But they're also just archetypes. They're just kind of describing different dimensions of how work happens, and that, like in today's world, we're kind of being invited to embody all of them, or like trying to integrate all of them in our own way. But before that, the kind of whole point of the thing, and this is my worldview anyway, is like we come here to do something. Like we incarnate because we want to come and experience something. Otherwise, why the fuck would we come and incarnate again? I think we come for an experience, and part of that is to come and do something. That's what work is at its foundation for me. It's about the polarity of being and doing, and work is a being doing something. Like that's the thing you do.
Mm,
And I think we get lots of room for interpretation and sovereignty in how we do that. But I think my belief is we come with an inbuilt intention. It's kind of more in like symbolic or archetypal form, like I want to come and experience this kind of thing. You
mm,
get to choose the path you take to go and experience that. But like, yeah, we come to do something. It's like we are on a path. We are on a journey from the beginning. It's a soul journey. We're trying to work out like who am I and what do I want to do here in this crazy world of ours? Like what's the thing that's mine that I really want to contribute or like bring into the picture together? And like, yeah, my what I think I feel is like allowing the perspective of all those different archetypes to be in the mix really allows that journey to happen. Because like you were saying, the amazing thing about the merchant is, well, you're in relationship to the marketplace. Like you're putting things out there and you're seeing, well, what do people like? What do they not respond to? What really gets attention? So it's giving you the real world feedback. Um, but also, I think this is an applied example too. Like the artist is generally very suppressed in our culture. I feel probably because of the school
mm.
traumatization thing you named earlier. In general, I think it's very suppressed. And but it's the artist that actually channels stuff from beyond you. Like that's
Yeah.
how artists work. Like it's you're not thinking like I'm gonna write War and Peace. The guy just sat down and this thing came out weirdly. I don't know why I gave that example. I've never actually read War and Peace, but like I guess
It's an
it's an
amazing
epic.
book.
Right,
It's an
right,
amazing book. Yeah.
right. So that's what those people do. They just channel something. And I think anyone who's like stayed with a creative practice for long enough, like you experience that sooner or later. Like it just feels like I don't know where that came from. Something came through.
And at the
And
same time, I imagine Tolstoy like was crafting
right,
like, you know, he easily would have done 10,000 hours of writing before he produced that.
totally, totally, which
But
is
I
another dimension of
totally,
the artist. Yeah,
yeah, but then I totally agree that there must have been some moment where that just, you know, oh, I need to write about this, and then he begins, but the characters take him on a journey, and
right, right,
narrative takes him on a journey. If he it must have been more like that.
right. And I think you learn something about who you are through that expression and experience. I know more about less about Tolstoy and more about like popular music, for example, and someone like the Beatles, they were just writing songs all the time without thinking about it and kind of discovering, oh, like this stuff came out and this thing came through. And I think that's something that we're actually set up really well in our society to give space to that kind of stuff with our social media networks.
Yeah.
But the issue is that most people are looking at it through a very merchant lens. So it's seen as market content, which it is, but it's also other things. I would
Yeah.
say, like, the real invitation with content is it's art. Like, you get to make art, like you get to make something like, this is interesting to me. I don't know what people are going to think about it, but this floats my boat. And I think that's interesting and brings a different dimension and works for the business too, because when you find the stuff that, like, what the artist is really good at is making things that touch people. Like, we can feel like an
Mm.
emotional connection. Like, when you listen to an amazing song, like, I just get super touched, or I cry at
Yeah.
almost every film I watch these days. Like, whatever the
Yeah.
part
Me
is, like,
too.
it just gets me. And that's
Yeah.
what art does in this amazing way. And that kind of emotional connection that you can create with people builds amazing trust and intimacy, which is the lifeblood of marketing. Like, if you want to do really good marketing for a long time, you want a lot of trust with your audience and you want a lot of intimacy with them. That's what drives
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah. I love what you're speaking to because when it's it's not like, oh, I want to lead a circle, I want to lead a workshop. Like I love this practice. Now I have to like do the copy.
Right.
But if that's what that becomes, then that's going to become part of your art. It's like when it becomes like, oh, I get a chance to do something like to create art and to speak my message and to learn because I might not do it well and really that's okay. That the good thing about marketing is you get another chance to do on your next event and slowly but surely, I mean, the the great marketers of our time have certainly had failed products or services and and actually, yeah, waking, I woke up to this a few years ago where I was like, oh, I think I'm getting the same level of aliveness, writing copy, messaging someone in my team about an upcoming event, or as I do actually being in the workshops. And that's where this, I mean, this practice of, trying to find what's deeply true in us and speaking more in relation to our deeper truth and really trying to see the truth in others and yeah, being in that more authentic connection. The amazing thing for me, I think you were speaking to as well, is when I would start to speak it publicly in the events I was leading, it really amazed me because it was a bit of the artist where like the practice was for me to be authentic, even when I'm like here in front of 20 people who have flown to be part of this workshop and here I am leading it. I need to get like have an impact now, but seeing that need to and that pressure and then like, okay, I'm going to speak what's actually here and then attempting it, but then it's only in attempting it that suddenly it was like, oh, this does feel alive. Oh, this does feel meaningful. And then, but then in some moments it's like, oh no, that didn't feel right. There's something felt a bit off there. So there's something about art where it's like you've got to attempt to do it and like the road appears as you try it.
Yes.
And so the surrender is not the seeker. I find the seeker is more often just like waiting and like looking and observing and embodying and trying to find the truth or allow the truth to emerge, whereas the artist is daring to express the truth. And like you point to, it's more about beauty. It's like, does beauty come through? And then that's what I was pointing to, that actually even a little email to advertise like a short course I was doing became that same thing of sitting in front of a workshop. Does this writing feel alive as I do it?
Mm.
And finding more and more that it did. And actually calls like this I'm doing now, like podcasts or like being interviewed, it has that same rich aliveness as deep practice used to for me. So there's definitely been a shift where it felt a bit the burden of marketing and but I also want to say just to add to that the merchant I don't want to restrict it also to marketing because a lot of my business life is teamwork. When we create an event with three leaders, or when we've got to, I've got a team of administrators and we've got to work together and we've got to divide the finances together. And I've got a leadership role in that. I had a really difficult conversation recently around this very topic, finances and how we're organizing that in the organization. These are hard conversations to have and they're complex matters. And it's not easy to discern the truth there, and it can be very humbling. And it was, yeah, deeply emotional process to look at these. But but these are also then places of growth and love and like potential to create, to work as a team member, to be a leader, to be a follower, to 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 think about the public, but also to stay authentic to your brand. And this whole thing is infused with human like excellence and vulnerability.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think me and you and many of our friends are kind of built to look at the journey of business like that and kind of find our way to this kind of worldview. And I think that's what the the archetypal map helped me understand, which is like these are multi-strand journeys now. Like, if we go back a few centuries, the seeker is just doing their seeking thing. Like they've become a monk or a nun or whatever it is in the cave or the monastery. And generally those places didn't deal with money, or like some of them did, but mostly you're with God or whoever it may be. And equally, like the merchants in the marketplace were generally like just doing their trade stuff, and they're trying to, it's a material game to create more wealth for themselves and people. And the artists were doing their thing too, like they begrudgingly had to deal with the patrons who would pay for their paintings, but really they just wanted to make the pure art. And like I don't think we can specialize in that same way anymore, and therefore, yeah, to walk the path of business and entrepreneurship, in my view anyway, is a spiritual path too. Like you can't escape the fact that it's gonna bring up those issues, like in the meetings and in the very concrete, practical
Yeah.
stuff. And I've had the same thing, like you know, big impactful conversations about finances, for example, or partners leaving the business and buying them out, which we both experienced. Like that is a whole thing.
It's a
That is
complex
a
task.
whole thing. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of the business world gets around it by just treating the whole thing as impersonal. Like, oh, business isn't personal. And I think some people are really good at doing that. And I think a lot of good business people do take it less personally and they can kind of be more objective. But I would argue that if you're keeping the personal out of it because you don't want to deal with it, well, that's just making a whole bunch of mess that everyone's going to deal with sooner or later. And so, yeah, I think these things are really, they're about our growth as human beings, about what the truth is and how we want to treat each other.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, it's deep work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was something else. Yeah, I actually think you're, yeah, you're right that like contemporary world, it's amazing that, I mean, when I was growing up, I would never have imagined I would be on TV
Right. Right.
ever. Like I was so introvert and like that was such a leap pursuit of like, very few famous people, but these technologies have now, like, as we speak, are creating, everyone's got an opportunity to be on the TV.
Right. We're on
Who's
TV now. It's a small channel, but like you have your own TV channel and we're putting a thing out on it. Right.
and then yeah, I get to be an organizational leader. I get to also be a spiritual guide or a relational practice guide. It's there's all these opportunities. But actually, I think when I look at history, like I remember reading the autobiography of Sir Isaac Newton. Yeah, and I was really impressed by his life. Interesting character, but he was certainly more than a an artisan. You could say like the scientist as an artisan. Like he was an incredible scientist, of course, but actually he had a really important job in England. He was like head of the treasury. And it was like the
Mm.
most important job at the time. And yeah, he made a pretty big success of it as well. He was pretty damn good at it. And but he was also studying deeply alchemy, which is kind of the mystical strand of Christianity at the time. And so, so I think the greats always knew that they had to market themselves. And I think like the great artists had that dimension with them. And I think there have been many an artist that we will never hear about because they shunned the merchant that they couldn't bring it to themselves to put their stuff out there because somehow that looks bad on their beauty if they try to make money from it
Yeah.
or
No, yeah,
promote it in some way. And and I understand that tension because there is something where you can sell out, and that I think is painful to the true artist. That's deeply painful for the seeker to do something inauthentic. But I actually think if you travel the thin road of truth, you'll see that actually you can also deny your art by not taking it out as well, and actually you can speak to what your art is without being inauthentic while being authentic. You can do both.
yeah, right. Yeah, and I think what you say about the kind of avatars, like the great examples in history, yeah, some of the biographies I've read or when I've looked into people, they've got so much more range than we kind of like think they did. And I was going to mention the alchemy thing too, that yeah, he was a so in my model, so each of the archetypes, the artist, merchant, and the seeker, subdivides into three again, so you can kind of get the sub flavors of each one. And the seeker subdivides into the scientist, the scholar, and the mystic. And in
Mm,
our culture, it's really fragmented. Like the mystic wing and the scientific wing do not generally get on with each other. And our culture is generally very scientific and, empirical and doesn't really believe in mysticism, really. And
mm.
the mystics are kind of, you know, at least the traditional stuff is very suspicious of science and modern progressive technology.
Yeah.
And I think the game is integration. And Newton's an interesting example because he's like held as this master scientist, but he was a raging alchemist. Like he was writing and exploring that as much as the physics stuff, except that that part was buried and they didn't publish his alchemy. I think it's still never been published, I think. Is that right? I
I
don't,
think you can find it.
you can find it now?
I want
Okay,
to
right,
engage with it, but
right.
it when was it Dyson that does the science that science guy that does the documentaries on
Sure.
science, something Tyson or Dyson. Um, I remember he did a whole thing on Isaac Newton's life, and it was all on the science and a little bit about his life. And then right at the end, there was this last sentence, oh yeah, and he did look into alchemy, but that all came to nothing.
Right, that's bad. That's bad truth guarding. That's bullshit. Like that's
Although
not
maybe he was being mystical, it all came to nothing. So it all came
right.
to it came to the deep truth. Yeah.
But it's actually only a recent thing that we have scientists who aren't also mystics. Like, you go back to, I think, those historical examples, like everyone was interfacing with spirituality or mysticism to some degree, and
Yeah.
some of them
Einstein. Yeah.
really deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I've got to finish soon, but yeah, what's the yeah, is there any last thing you'd like to yeah, share on this or
Mm.
touch on?
Well, I'd say like I mean we've had quite an expansive conversation about some like bigger principles and global patterns also. Um, I think the book is written and it's intended to basically be a map, a companion for someone who's doing the work, who's following the path, trying to bring what they have to the world and make a business out of it in some form or another. Um, so, for anyone who's already on that path, check it out. Um, I think, like I said, it's resolved so many tensions in my own worldview to like work it out and get this written down.
Mm.
I've had lots of people say a similar thing, um, and let's see what else. Practically, you can get hard copies of it on Amazon, but you can also get the digital version. I've got like a PDF and an EPUB you can put on e-readers. That's free. You just get on my mailing list and you get it. That's at um, ewantownhead.com/book. There you go.
Cool.
There's
I'll
me
put that in the,
practicing
yeah.
my marketer.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'll put it all in the description. And um, yeah, I just want to say, I think there's a true writer in you. The writing's very elegant. It's very easy to read. Really nice short paragraphs that get right to the point, but feel elegant to read. And I really appreciated that. It's very nice to read. Uh, I
Thank you,
I
man.
do I do read books around leadership and business, and yeah, this one was much more smooth for me to read. Got through it very quickly. So encourage anyone who, yeah, normally finds those books boring or difficult. This, I imagine you'll find this one, yeah, engaging and flowing to read. I think there
Yeah,
was
I don't,
a
it's not
true
that
artist
long.
in there.
It's not that
Yeah.
long either, and I definitely worked really hard to kind of craft this as something that's, even though some of the concepts are complex, to try and make it really simple and relatable.
Yeah. Well, you integrate in some very, I mean, I saw the integral influence. There's a deep integral philosophy integrated into it, but it's
Yeah,
very, for anyone that wants to learn more about kind of integral spirituality and um, a really powerful meta map of existence. It's in your book, but you might not even notice because it's written very simply and elegantly. So yeah, good job on that. Yeah.
thank you, man, and thanks for the compliments on the writing. That means a lot coming from you, and that that feels good in my heart. That's a strong desire for me in my life. Is like the ability to convey powerful like teachings and useful things through writing, but have it be a beautiful experience to read as well.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do more. I
I
think this
will.
is
There
the
are more.
beginning.
There are not quite yet, but yes, there will definitely be more.
Yeah. Yeah, well, big love, and it's thanks for coming on and yeah, sharing your craft and your passion and your truth.
Thank you, Ben.
Uh,
So welcome. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
yeah, and proud of your brother.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yeah, until till soon. And yeah, for anyone listening, check out the description. We'll give you some links to Ewan's book and his work. And yeah, big love.